you to the Delta White Center Lodge for having us here today. This is a beautiful building. I don't believe I've ever been inside this hall, but my grandfather and his father and his father before him were all Masons, and my grandfather got a great deal of satisfaction out of his life in Masonry. In fact, his father was named Henry Mason Wilson. And I just returned from Scotland, visiting the part of Scotland from which that branch of the family came, and visited the monument at Dunfermline at the cathedral to the founder of Masonry, and it was modern Masonry, and it was quite a moving opportunity. I appreciate all that you do, all that you've done, and your work with the community to preserve this great building. I would also make mention of the fact that I had the chance to honor former county executive John Spellman during my State of the County address a few months ago. He came and joined us in Kent at the Regional Justice Center, and he is doing quite well and is very much still interested in the affairs of county and state. And I know that he would be tremendously inspired by the work of the awardees today, and we will, of course, be sharing your stories with him. We've received a number of nominations for this award program, which speaks to the great work being done by people and organizations all over the county. Today I want to recognize those who've made a truly outstanding contribution to the protection and enhancement of our historic and cultural environment. Historic preservation and quality of life go hand in hand. We are stewards of historic places for only a short time before we hand that responsibility to the next generation. That's why I believe it's important that young people learn to value the role these sites play in our lives. Today, I'm pleased to recognize a young man who has a thing or two to teach most adults about stewardship. Waylon Robert will be a 9th grader at Blanchette High School. But he's already demonstrated a remarkable appreciation for the value of preserving historic buildings. Waylon's been a regular visitor to the historic towns along Highway 2 since he was an infant. These are railroad and mining towns with colorful histories. But many of the buildings associated with this history have been lost or are seriously threatened. Two of those that remain, the Bush House in Index and the Skykomish Hotel, captured young Waylon's attention at an early age. He recalls summer afternoons in the garden of the Bush House Country Inn. He brightens up when he considers the blackberry cobbler that was served in the restaurant before the building was boarded up over 8 years ago. Excursions into the nearby town of Skykomish fascinated him, particularly the magnificent old hotel, which, like the Bush House, don't you just play video games or something? Which, like the Bush House, is one of the few 19th century wooden hotels left in the region. In recent years, both of these buildings have deteriorated significantly, and Waylon wondered, at the young age of then 12, just what he could possibly do to make it right again. That's when he discovered the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation and its Most Endangered list. Each year, this nonprofit statewide organization establishes a list of properties that are threatened by demolition, neglect, incompatible development, or insensitive alteration. The Trust's staff then works with advocates such as Waylon to raise awareness about the plight of these buildings. Waylon was off and running. His nomination of the Bush House to the list was accepted, and as he wrote in his application, I think the Bush House is like Night at the Museum. But it's not a movie, it's really happening. They have no TVs. They still have some of the original furnishing, and you can sit by the stone fireplace to warm up during the winter. During the summer, you can sit on the patio and drink ice-cold lemonade while looking up at Mount Index. Index is just not the same ever since the Bush House closed. Waylon wasted no time in submitting a second nomination, this time for the Skykomish Hotel, which was also successfully listed. Throughout it all, he's worked with the trust, talked with property owners, gotten to know elected officials and residents in each of the towns, and demonstrated an amazing natural talent for advocacy. We are hopeful that the Skykomish Hotel will find new life, just as the town of Skykomish is finding new life. All of this because a middle schooler from Ballard couldn't stand by and watch these buildings fall to the ground. He's an extraordinary young man with a great future ahead of him. Waylon, please come forward and accept this much-deserved award.
Hello, my name is Waylon Robert, and you folks are probably wondering why on earth a 14-year-old kid is interested in history so much and working to save two of the state's perhaps two most vulnerable historic hotels, the Skykomish Hotel in Skykomish and the Bush House Country Inn in Index, Washington. Since I was a little kid, whenever my parents and I would go on a trip, I'd always seem to end up at a historic place. Some of these places were the historic Santa Maria Inn, where many of the movie stars from the golden age of Hollywood would hang out, like Marilyn Monroe, John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, and many other stars. The Vanderbilt Mansion in Hyde Park, along with Franklin Roosevelt's mansion there too. The Watts Tower in LA, the historic town of Cedar Key, Florida, the Picatop Mansion in Portland, Oregon, but last but not least, the Davenport Hotel in Spokane, Washington. All of these places have inspired me to be persistent, committed, and as some people say, a bugger for both the historic Bush House Country Inn and the Skykomish Hotel. All of these places, but in these hard economic times, as we have seen, government, both state and local, are having to slash funding to almost everything, including museums, state parks, and our historic places. But we cannot scrimp our history, because as I believe, we should all know where we came from and our nation's heritage. But sadly, many of our historic buildings are being lost to the wrecking ball. Example, Long Island's Great Gatsby Mansion. To me, this is disturbing, that we are throwing away our history so some developer can make a buck. Thankfully, many organizations, groups, and people are working hard to preserve these buildings, and I am very happy that I'm among the people working to save our historic landmarks. My hope is after all this, both the Bush House Country Inn and the Skykomish Hotel will be restored, just like these places. It would be so nice to have blackberry cobbler gobbler at the Bush House, or maybe sit on the porch at the Skykomish Hotel. I would want to thank my parents, my school, St. Alphonsus, the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, David Cameron, Louise Lindgren from Index, Mayor Black from Skykomish, Washington. I would also want to thank our County Executive, Dow Constantine, for this award.
As you probably all know, Skykomish is not just around the corner. It's a trip, but it was a fascinating trip to see not only the environmental cleanup that's going on, but the exciting heritage that's in Skykomish. The restoration of that heritage provides an opportunity for profit for great visitor industry in a beautiful part of our state. And for property owners in the city alike, it's my hope that Skykomish will build on that opportunity. I want to congratulate all of the award winners. I want to thank all of them and everyone else who's working on historic and in some cases prehistoric preservation in our county and beyond. It is important for us to recognize what has come before us so that we may have some idea of where we are going. And I am so pleased that King County, even in difficult financial times, has been able to keep preservation as a priority. And I want to thank our state legislators as well, who saw fit to redirect some of the existing hotel motel revenues that remained on the books in order to preserve arts, heritage, culture, and historic preservation. Thank you so much for being here today.